All right. And it's going. Sweet. Hello, hello, and welcome back to Guidance in Recovery Sobriety Journeys with your host, Keegan. Have you tried what feels like everything to move past traumas and nothing seems to be working? Well, today we are joined by Cheryl Stelte, a spiritual coach, master healer, and the founder of the Star of Divine Light Institute. With over 30 years of experience, Cheryl is also a best selling author of 3 transformative books, including From Blocked to Powerful. She is here to help us unwind deep seated survival patterns at the root, moving beyond surface level mindset work into true deep healing. So, Cheryl, what myth are you willing or wanting to bust today?
The myth that I would love to bust today is a place where most of us live, and that is the myth that we're all separate beings. And
Okay.
we are not. We are all connected. We are all of source. We are all of the creator living in form. And the separation that we experience is not the truest reality. It really is an illusion.
Hmm. Okay. So it's all an illusion, huh? Even our pains and traumas?
Our pains and traumas are very real because we have the small self and then we have our soul or the higher self. So our pains and traumas are all very real, and we all came here to experience them,
Hmm.
to learn
Okay.
and grow through them,
What was that?
and to learn and grow through our pains and traumas.
Ah, okay. So they're here to teach us lessons, right? They're not just something that just kind of happens for happenstance per se.
Yes. I often say sometimes when I'm working with people, I'm like, I'll either say it out loud or I don't say it. I say it silently, but what was your soul thinking? We sign up for our lessons, we agree to certain things, and I believe that it's the oldest souls, the souls that have lived multiple lives, sign up for the biggest challenges
Hmm. Why do you think that that is?
to grow to a higher level, often, I believe, to serve others in greater ways.
Hmm. Okay. So are we saying that we're in some level taking on our own pains because we chose to before we were born?
Not the small self, not the human form, but our soul, I believe, chooses our parents and choose what we learn and grow through. So it's what our soul requires to move through its own evolution.
Okay. So real quick, could you give us a little bit of background about like what got you on this spiritual healing journey of sorts?
My traumas and pain. It actually, what got me on this path was I had a very profound spiritual experience with my deceased brother, who,
Hmm.
suffering from severe addictions, took his life.
Hmm.
And his spirit came to me on the beach when I had a friend working on me, and I knew he was there. I experienced him as this huge ball of white light floating above me as I was laying on the beach. And I couldn't say anything because my friend was talking so fast. And then all of a sudden she said, "It's your brother. Oh my God, he's here." And I said, "I know." And his message to me was to start meditating.
Hmm. It was just to start meditating. That was it.
Oh, there was a lot more. I, there was a lot more. I asked him some questions. She'd never channeled a spirit before, but he explained that his addictions. He didn't explain that the addictions were part of the bipolar, but he said he was bipolar and was never diagnosed, and that was a part of it, and that because we went through a period of, I've never shared this, I'm going to share this. We went through a period of time because you asked, was that it? Nobody else asked that, Keegan. His spirit had been showing up, and my little nephews were seeing him, and the parents were freaking out.
Oh,
What are you doing? And I I tried to get through to him earlier. I talked to a psychic who said, well, you can communicate with his spirit, right in that state, right before you fall asleep or when you first wake up. And it was really unpleasant for me.
Mm.
So I asked him about that, why he did that, and he said he was very troubled. So even after his soul left this plane, he was still troubled. And then a number of our family members got together and prayed for him to go to the light, and he did. And he acknowledged that, and his spirit was here to help people who are depressed, bipolar, suffering with mental health in those ways. So it was so profound. It was just life-changing for me because I was suffering from severe depression at the time. That was 33 years ago now. And
Oof.
yeah, and I had been put on medication. That was when antidepressants were first becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was able to get off them and never look back.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that and opening up because, I mean, it sounds like that was one heck of a wake up call. Well, is it a wake up call or an epiphany?
Both. Both.
And I mean, with that being said, how did your family kind of take to the whole interaction that you had with him whenever it was on the beach?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. My father just told everybody that didn't happen. Made it up. So he
Mm,
he was certain about that. My mother believed me and then didn't. My sister-in-law believed me fully. My because she was the one that suggested we all pray for his soul. So she worked with she was a therapist and worked with other people who were quite spiritual. And what she said to me, because I started to doubt myself, I'm like, did I make that up somehow? But the feeling, the deep sense of love that I felt for him never went away or felt from him. But I started to question myself, and she said that's a normal response. All the research shows that when you have this kind of experience, we often, because of our conditioning, and so I just stopped talking about it with my family and talk with people who would listen and could support me.
mm. That's a good idea, and I think that our conditioning really does kind of block us off from a lot of gifts or just really being able to experience the world in all of its full glory, you know.
Oh yeah,
So,
all that conditioning.
hmm whenever it came to like your depression and stuff, was that like meditation? Was that his message saying like if you do meditation, your depression will kind of go away, or was he kind of just hinting at something else?
Good question. Keegan, you have the best questions. I started meditating, and I wonder if he knew that I would use a full breath because I was never, I went to a meditation class, a course right away, and they said to breathe normally. But my body wanted to breathe in long, full breaths. You know,
Hmm.
I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada, where it's really cold in the winters. And I just talked to someone who was from Calgary and said their mother said the same thing. When you get really cold, don't breathe through your mouth because your lungs could freeze and you could die. And we'd
Hmm.
be walking to school and that sort of thing. So I was scared to die. And so I learned to calm my body, the shivering I would feel when I would often be outside by breathing with long breaths. And I learned that. And then for some reason, when I started meditating, my body would go into these long, full, deep breaths. And I had no idea the results of that. I mean, we didn't even know about the vagus nerve yet. And it stimulates the vagus nerve, it calms the whole sympathetic nervous system. It does so much for us. So I noticed when I'd be shivering and tense and cold, my body would relax and I would feel, a little bit warmer. I wouldn't feel quite as cold. But what inadvertently started happening, I started to access my early childhood woundings, my traumas, that old conditioning, all the repressed emotions that were still triggering me in so many ways. And I started healing myself. And honestly, it was just a matter of months, and I went off those antidepressants against my daughter's will, my doctor's will. And I'm not suggesting anybody do that, but in those days, meditation was not an avenue by any stretch. And I never had to go back on that medication. And he was always shocked. And he was doing research. He was as you say in the US, I think you call it primary care, where in Canada we say family doctor, but he was working at a mental health office as well, doing research on depression. And so he used me as a case study over the years. He would always, if I went in to see him at the flu or anything, I always had to answer these questionnaires. And he kept saying, you just keep doing what you're doing. And even, through the years that I knew him, I moved away, but there never was this research, but he was very excited. And it really worked because I started healing myself. And then my friends, people I knew, were asking me, like, what are you doing? You seem so different. And they wanted to learn and they wanted to be helped. And it sort of took off from there.
Okay. So everything just kind of started with the deep breaths, and whenever we say deep breath, you're not talking about the kind of where it's like from your shoulders up, right? You're talking about like the belly breath, right?
The belly breath, you are bang on, Keegan, because that changes our brain function. So you want to breathe below your navel. So if you're listening right now, I invite you to put your hand on your lower abdomen with your thumb at the level of your navel. And Keegan and I are breathing with you, and you breathe a long inhale to the count of 6 or 8 seconds, and then a long exhale, and you squeeze your belly at the end of the breath. And it helps give you access to your subconscious. It changes your brain function. And then, one of the biggest things in addiction and recovery is dealing with our emotions. And I have to say something. In all the work I've done with others, and I've had a lot of clients who are in recovery, who are trying to live clean, etc., is that people who have addiction issues, it's a sacral chakra thing, and I don't mean to stereotype, but they often feel deeply. And so it's really hard to be in our culture, in our society, feeling so deeply. So we learn to suppress those emotions. And some people do it with substance. Other people do it. Now we have all these online screens. So it's easy, just go to that. Some people do it with sex. Some people, it's avoid those emotions. And in my day, I'm 64, I'm going to be 65. It wasn't okay to talk about your feelings. It was not okay. And some families are doing it now. So I feel like, and I'm not going to say all people that are in recovery are sensitive, but they often are. They feel deeply. They're amazing, amazing people. And it's that depth of feeling that contributes to your greatest powers, your the greatness of who you are. So just that one thing, learning to breathe through your emotions, even when it's hard, even when it's so uncomfortable, and breathe through them, they release. When you take a substance or look at a screen, avoid, all they do is they build up. They build up, they build up, they build up, and they're going to explode at some time, or you're going to become completely numb. You're going to shut down. That happens as well. But if you can breathe through your emotions, start to develop healthier neural pathways, and eventually that desire for any kind of substance will diminish.
Okay. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's actually been one of the things that I've noticed in my own walk, talking to others in recovery and going through recovery myself, is that people that struggle with substance abuse disorder, or really just any kind of addiction in a sense, are typically the ones that feel deeper and, like you said, are quote unquote sensitive. And I mean, nowadays, saying someone is sensitive, or even ever since I was in existence, calling someone sensitive was almost like a bad thing. Like, oh no, you're sensitive, and it's not the truth, you know. And so, I think that there's a superpower in being able to feel that deepness, but it can be so uncomfortable because we're not letting other people express their emotions. We're not letting people explain their emotions or being able to just have them. And we shame people out of just the silliest things, kind of, you know. And it's like, why do we do this? And I digress. So what is it that really helps someone get through that uncomfortable feeling whenever they're trying to breathe? Because for myself, I do know that as I've been going through healing and recovery, I will sit there and still like doing day-to-day things, and I'll be like, oh, I'm holding on to a breath. Why am I holding on to something? It's like I'm preparing for something, like to shoot a drop.
That's it's your earlier conditioning. And I mean, I've been doing this for well over 30 years, and I still find myself holding the breath occasionally because it we develop new neural pathways, but the biggest thing is the awareness. You catch yourself. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hand on the belly, and you can breathe again. So I don't know if we ever really get there, but we discover more of the truths of our being. So the number one thing for me when, I meditate every single day, no matter what. Does that mean I want to every day? Sometimes not. Sometimes I want to indulge, have another cup of coffee, or, and I mostly drink decaf, but it's still the illusion I have this. Anyway, or distract myself with something because there's an emotion coming up that I don't want to feel. So I ask myself the question, and I encourage you to ask, what is it I don't want to feel?
Mm.
So you learn to be honest with yourself. You learn to trust yourself. Oh, what is it I don't want to feel? And go inward. Focus your eyes, close your eyes, focus your eyes inside your body. What is it I don't want to feel? Where do I experience this in my body? Where's my resistance? What is it? And then you can label it, you can name it. And you can even say, I just feel crappy. It can be, doesn't have to be, a word that is whatever works for you, whatever is happening in there. But notice if you feel scared, if you feel angry, there's always layers of emotions underneath, which moves you into the next phase. But just starting there, what is it that I don't want to feel? What is it that's hard to feel? It's
Yeah.
hard, but it's so worth feeling it because once it moves through, the system can relax again. You can calm your nervous system and carry on. And really, underneath all the difficult emotions are amazing emotions if you let yourself access those. The love and light that's within you, the joy for life, the zest, the exuberance, all of that is hidden underneath all those difficult emotions that have been repressed for years.
Mm. Yeah, I'm glad that you said that because I know whenever I was trying to numb all of my pains and stuff, I was like, I just want to get rid of this one or two emotions and we'll be fine. It doesn't work that way. You shove one down, you shove all of them down, unfortunately. And so you're sitting here with what you do and you're trying to help the people that have tried everything, but it just doesn't really seem to be working, right? So, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So if we're sitting here and we're looking at the breath and just trying to access the subconscious to the point to where we're reprogramming ourselves, kind of like letting go of the conditioning that brought us into this self-built cage of sorts, right? And are we looking at only the breath, or do we do other things with the breath?
There's other things we do with the breath, and I just have a story that I'm kind of itching to share with you, but I won't.
No, you can. You can.
I'll go with the breath and whatever else you have to do. I'm just reminded of a story. I've never shared online that I've smoked pot for a lot of years, smoked weed, drank like a fish in my 20s, da 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 da. And I have no cravings for any substance ever anymore. But the other thing that you get, and I remember I was living in Vancouver and I was walking down to the beach. I was living right near downtown. So I'm in this high rise right on the beach on the ocean. It's incredible. And I'm walking down these steps to get down to the beach, and there's these two guys smoking some pot. And I had just had this amazing meditation, and I was higher than a kite. So I get a lot of these natural highs. And I'm like, oh, you guys, you don't need to do that to get high. I can teach you some meditations, blah, blah, blah. That would fulfill that need to, and it's really embodying who you are. Anyway, we chatted because I was teaching a lot where I lived in that high rise. I was teaching a lot of meditation, doing a lot of healing up there because it's not just about coping. It's not just about coping, people. It's discovering the truth of who you really are at the deepest levels, and the joy and the upliftment. And like I said to those guys, there is no sex or drugs or rock and roll that compare to the joy of discovering the truth of your being, who you really are. So sorry, I'm totally off track, but I just wanted to share that story and trying to get them to come to my class. But so we can call it meditation. You can call it going inward if you don't want to have to meditate. And this is not about getting rid of all thought. It's not. You focus on the breath, close your eyes, do not sit cross-legged. Because it's ideal to have your feet firmly planted on the floor. Sit in a chair. We're not built like people in India whose backs can stay straight when they're sitting cross-legged on the floor. Our back curves because they don't have chairs in India, or very few. I've been there. Have you been there? They all sit on these mats all over the floor. You go into a store and there's mats to sit on. So it's sitting with your spine straight. So if you always remember this, it's so important. Energy runs up and down the spine vertically. So the straighter your spine, the better. So important. If you're sitting back, relaxed on the couch or lying down, you're not going to get that flow. And you can go for an experience. You want the experience of upliftment, sitting really nice and straight. Feet firmly on the floor. Embody your awareness in your body, not your third eye. That helps you leave your body. And I like to focus on the root chakra because when we feel deeply and we don't feel safe in the world, that comes from the root chakra. We don't feel safe and stable in being in our emotions. So that area is located at the tip of the tailbone. So you close your eyes. Bring your eyes down there, focus there, and breathe fully. And you can ask yourself, what in my body wants to be felt? What emotion wants to be processed? Quiz yourself. And if you don't know where to begin and you can't, nothing's coming to you, you can think of the most recent event, any situation where you felt even a little upset, something bothered you, and go there. And all of our upsets are not about the situation that happened today. They're always about our early childhood. And we follow those emotions back to our early childhood and release them. And then we can discover who we truly are through reparenting ourselves, and we can reprogram that into our brain using, we have the advantage of the brain's neuroplasticity in reprogramming through the full breath again.
Huh. Okay. So I'm kind of curious, like, how do we figure out who we are if we've never really known who we are?
Exactly. So first I'm going to say, if you listen to the podcast all the way through, I'm going to give away some free, powerful meditations that you can learn to do this at home. So that's the whole reason we came here. We all came here to discover who we truly are. And all of these events in our lives, traumatic, all our wounds, everything, are covering that up. So the more we release them, the more we discover the depth of our being, the truth, how brilliant we truly are, how much light we have, how beautiful our lives and the world are, even if we grew up in terribly dysfunctional families. And it's not from thinking. When we get to those places, it's this deep inner knowing in the younger child who is still so much more pure in light than what we are as adults who've gone through this long and difficult journey.
Okay, so I mean, it's so interesting because I mean, it's hard to imagine who we are without knowing who we have not been. Am I thinking about that right? You know, because as we grow up, as we go through life, we experience traumas, we get these expectations of other people placed on us that we have to live up to, and all this, that, and another. But I mean, we have to kind of look at ourselves from an unbiased, unjudgmental standpoint and just kind of accept everything that comes through. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Uh, yeah, not quite exactly. It's, if you think of it this way, it's going to be a surprise.
Hmm.
It's going to be a surprise. You can't know. And it's about allowing. It's about allowing. So in the beginning, the journey is so much more about healing than empowerment. So
Mm.
much more about healing. And then later it becomes more about the empowerment and all the great discoveries of who you truly are as an energetic being, as a soul in human form.
Hmm.
And I just want to say that, it's recovery. What recovery does, it really teaches us responsibility, right?
Yeah.
It's so much about responsibility. Healing restores your self-worth.
Mm.
Empowerment builds self-respect. And together they create inner freedom.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
the things that life throws us no longer have the huge impact that it would have before.
Okay. So healing is finding out who we are, like we're going back to who we were, and then empowerment is empowering that version, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That.
Okay. Interesting. Oh, I'm starting to hear myself back through your stuff. So real quick, where can, oh, you said later on in the episode we'll get to the meditations, but where can they find you if they're looking for your website?
You can find me on starofdivinelight.com.
Okay,
There we go, starofdivinelight.com. Thank you very much, Keegan.
of
And you
course.
can also find me on Instagram. I'm mostly there for social media.
Gotcha. um, And whenever we're talking about like this healing aspect, how do you know whenever you've like kind of hit it? Is it something that, I mean, you said there's a surprise, but is there something else that kind of gives you that, oh, this is it? Or is there like always another layer that it surprises you?
Well, it's so much a process. Like I do energy healing work on people all the time. And there's definitely layers of discomfort and following the emotional thread. So the body may often feel contracted. You might feel tension, even pain. You might feel heat or cold, a lot of tingling, that sort of thing as you process emotions and you go deeper and deeper into the different layers of emotion. And so it's accessing all that you've held in there and then clearing it. So I refer to this as my ACE method as well, axing what you've held on to ever since you were young, those layers of emotions, and clearing them is breathing through them And then when you release all that, and you can reparent yourself, become that parent that you never had, that's the empowerment piece. When you're fully loved unconditionally, when you're emotionally resourced. Anybody with substance issues of any sort didn't have someone there to be there, an emotional resource for them.
Mm.
And so then you're resourced, and then you discover the truths. I have a whole method for that. So you might feel like life is grim before the session, or during a session when you're experiencing your pain and breathing through it. But then when you free that up, you discover that, wow, life is beautiful and expansive. And there's always, when someone moves into the empowerment, there's a feeling of lightness. You feel so much lighter. The heaviness, the weight, the density of the wounding has gone, and you feel so much lighter, more alive. Often people will see, oh, things seem so much sharper, more vivid, and there's a peace and a calm within them. And then there's still homework in the reprogramming, so that's where you want to continue to meditate and go back to this state with your younger self, and revisit your new truths, and you will discover more and more. And it's interesting because I'm fortunate in that I can see energy. So I see people's, where their energy is all blocked up, and it's always black, sometimes gray, and where their light is. So nobody's all black.
Mm.
Nobody is completely wounded. There is always light somewhere. So what happens is, over time, you clear away the blocks where the energy is not moving, where it's dark, and that all releases. And then your light comes through, and that's how you discover who you truly are, is through the light that you are.
Hmm. Okay. And I mean, whenever you're working with people, do you see that block kind of like go away as they're clearing it on themselves?
Uh, Sometimes yes, and sometimes I don't pay attention to it. When to look visually, because I know that there is being a release by everything that's happening, by what they're moving through. So I'm very focused on how they're breathing, and focused on their experience, the emotions. And so sometimes they have memories, and sometimes not. But I will say this: trauma is encoded in the subconscious through physical sensations and emotions, not through linear memories. So if you're nervous about doing this kind of healing work, you're not going to have full long-term memories. They are always fragmented. There will be pieces missing, and it's not the memories that are important. It really is the lingering feelings of uncertainty that you grew up with, the self-doubt, the not knowing, the confusion. Confusion is always an emotion that's involved in trauma and early childhood wounding. And so it's it's allowing all of those to finally move through your body, and you don't have to remember everything that happened. And it's not you can, I'll listen to some clients who have a bit of a story, oh, I remember this, but the deepest woundings often happen before we have memory. They're pre-verbal, and often even in the womb. There's so many women that have conceived these babies, and they're scared, they're in unhappy relationships. Not all, but it's very common. How am I going to raise this child? Oh, now I'm pregnant again. I don't know if I should be in this relationship, and the baby feels that. Science is proving more and more that that's true. So it's trusting the process, and having that experience, creating that experience for yourself, just staying through the difficult part. You can think of it as, a really dirty floor that hasn't been washed in 30 years, and you have to scrub. But
Mm.
when it's done, it's sparkly clean and feels so good.
Mm. That's awesome. And I mean, it's crazy to think that some of the things that bother us, we didn't even know that we have because language wasn't there for us yet. We didn't really understand everything. And I also am really glad that you brought up the fact that like trauma does kind of fragment our memory, because it's like if I try to think back to my childhood, I'm like, there's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of pieces that I'm like, why is that not there? And then as I'm doing like meditations or something, it's weird because it kind of like you said, it's not linear. So it's not like I go back and I'm like, okay, I'm working on age 15, 14, 13. It's like, all right, here's like 15 and a half. And then we're going back to like 5. And then we're like in between maybe 7 and then just a little bit younger than all that. But it's weird because it is that physical feeling that I've noticed myself. It's something that's like, oh, this ties to this, and then this also came up here, and then this also came up here again. Like, I guess there's something there that needs to be addressed, and it's just weird how trauma like can build on top of each other. Is that the right way to kind of look at it?
Yeah, you're so accurate. Trauma builds on trauma because we develop that energy pattern. Remember, I said in the beginning, the myth that I wanted to bust is that we're all separate.
Mm-hmm.
We are all so connected. And so when we've had a certain trauma, we will unknowingly, unwillingly continue to recreate that in our lives in different ways. And that's how patterns are formed. So we have these patterns. And one suggestion I'd like to make, you go to 13, 15, 5, ask yourself the deepest emotion, ask yourself, when did this first begin? How old was I? Your subconscious will know. And you can go back there and breathe through that emotion and you'll feel the intensity. You'll feel the intensity. So it might be at age 10, the emotion is at a level 8. At age 6, so I often guide my clients back asking about the age. Sometimes they just zip right there. Even age 1, even age 1, 0, even in the womb, where there's an emotion that existed, and even fetuses take on the mother's emotions, can feel that, and we take it on and create that pattern. That's why I say, why did your soul sign up for that? And so let's say you're dealing with an emotion like confusion. I brought that one up, so I'll use it again. And my experience is it's often when children are 2 years old, they cannot process what's happening. Everything, they're often in chaos. They feel there's just this chaos, and the adults around them don't know what they're doing. The 2-year-old knows that. These people are out of control, and they feel the confusion because they don't understand, and they learn early on that they have to take control. And so how many of us are controlling people, that we think we have to control all our outcomes, right? And we have to have control over what's going on in our lives and other people. And that sort of thing, my experience is it starts around age 2, is very common when you have really children in adult bodies raising children. They're wounded. They didn't have emotional resources growing up, so they're struggling. Doesn't make them bad. It's how life was, and humanity is evolving. We're evolving so rapidly now, and it really is time to take full responsibility for ourselves, process all these old emotions, and move to a higher state of being. It's about living fully. It's yeah, you get clean, but then it's about living fully.
Yeah. Oof, living fully. I love that because I mean, in addiction, I thought I was living, but no, I was not. And then even before that, I was having to deal with all that trauma that led up to the addiction that I wasn't living. And so in recovery, it's kind of like, this is life. Like, what the? I've been missing out on a lot of stuff, haven't I? And it's just really weird that we can go through life without knowing who we are, but at the same time, again, how could we know this if we didn't know? So one of the things that you again brought up was the like, why am I here, or why did I go through that kind of thing? And so what's one of the things that you find a lot of people whenever they go through the traumas, what's one of the biggest lessons that seems to reappear the most?
The one of the biggest things that especially older people I work with, not so much people in their 30s, but they begin to discover their light. They actually have experiences of their own light. Wow. And how much love is within them and how well loved they are by Source, the Creator, God, and it's experienced. It's not like saying a prayer, and I'm all for prayer, but it's actually lived experience. And it's amazing how rapidly relationships change, life experiences, their careers, so much can change.
And so whenever this change starts to happen, like it's because they're seeing their light, right?
They're
So they're able.
experiencing it. They feel it inside.
Okay, so it's kind of like that deep knowing again of a sorts. Um, so whenever we're trying to help someone through that really uncomfortable portion, what is it that normally, I mean, is it fear of change that holds some people back? Is it fear of the unknown?
Nothing holds them back once they get going. I mean, when I'm
Oh,
working with them, if you're working on your own, if you're working on your own, it's the fear of feeling your feelings fully. I mean, I have done meditations where I am just like sobbing and it's all I can do to take one more breath. And so that's what I say to myself, just one more breath, just one more breath. Back in my, I think more in my mid 30s, sometimes in my late 30s. And then I went through a deeper layer, I think in my early 50s. But anyway, it's just staying with it and knowing that whatever it is, you'll move through it.
mm,
It's that knowing. So it's what stops people from sitting and meditating in the first place is the memories, is that, oh, I don't want to remember all that. Well, you're not going to, but you might have pieces of memory. And if you focus on the emotions, you'll be safe. And if you can it's learning to be able to process your emotions. And once you realize they're all temporary, it's all just energy. Emotions are energy in motion. They all just need to flow through you. You're totally safe because that's how all the good stuff comes in.
okay, I love that. So here's a question: if you earlier you had said it's great to do meditations with your feet flat on the floor, sitting in a chair with your back straight. Do you advise people to lay down or advise against it? Because I know for myself, I fall asleep sometimes a little bit too easily.
Yeah. I advise you not to lie down. And like I said earlier, you want to keep your spine straight because energy runs up and down the spine. When I do energy healings on people, I do them all online. So people are lying down on their back in front of me, but they're using the full breath and I can see their belly. As soon as you stop using the full breath, that's when you can more easily fall asleep. So for sure, sitting straight up. And when I'm working with people, the reason lying down works is because I'm your assistant and I'm helping move a lot of that energy for you, with you, and we're in it together.
Okay, that's awesome. And I mean, you'd also said something earlier about prayer being you're like a big advocate for prayer and stuff, right? How does that play into this whole aspect? Because one of the things I've come about in recovery is that you can pray for your past self, but your future self can also pray for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, 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 yes. And prayer also, so we have our divine self within us that's praying for us you could say it's so connected with us all the time, and it's about allowing that. So, like you say, well, sure, your past, present, and future selves can all be praying for you because you are a divine being. And remember, I said I can see energy, so I do chakra readings on people. And I remember the first time I met this woman who was a strong Christian, and she prayed very well. And the way I saw that energy of prayer was it came up off the top of her heart chakra. And so it was this radiant light going up at a 45-degree angle and so bright. And I said, wow, that is so powerful. And I'm tuning into what is that? And this is a number of years ago. And it felt like prayer, like it was devotion to God, this energy of devotion. And I said to her, do you pray? And she said, oh, yeah, I do. I pray every morning and every night. I'm like, wow, you have this energy of prayer. But I said, it comes off the top of your heart and it's going out to God. But I said, what would happen if you prayed to the God inside you? Because then the light goes within, and we all are a part of God. We all have God inside us. So if you pray well and you like to pray, try praying to the God inside you, because it really changes your state and helps you grow much faster than you would otherwise.
Ooh. Oh, okay. So how does someone pray to the God inside them? Because I mean that a lot of people might have a hard time grasping that aspect.
Well, you can just try it. It's first, are you in alignment that you're an aspect of God? You know, that
Hmm.
we have a soul. Our souls are all an aspect of the Creator. And so if you close your eyes and you tune into your heart, it's there's light in there. And if you look at really old pictures of Jesus and Mary, they often have this flame, this picture of this flame and this light coming out of the heart. We all have that within us. And so even if you don't experience it right away, just imagine God's inside you, and you pray to the God inside you. You bring your focus into the heart. You can even talk to God in there.
Hmm. Okay. That's awesome. I think a lot of people will be able to actually run with that. And I mean, it's something that might just change perspective for some people on what healing will actually do for them, you know? And we are getting near the end of this episode. We got about 10 minutes left. So, has there been any big surprises along your journey that you thought you kind of had a grasp on, but then it just kind of surprised you whenever it made a left turn out of nowhere or something like that?
Um, I think my biggest surprise was when I stepped into doing this work full time. I always thought it would be a side gig. I was worried about what people would think of me. So I mean, I had a spiritual interior design business for over a decade that I funneled so much of my spiritual work through. But I never just owned it. I never wore the hat. And so when it came to me that I really needed to start doing this work full time and nothing else, I was shocked. And it was like, and my stuff came up. Who do you think you are? And I just had a meltdown. And it took me at least a couple years to finally own it, to really agree to it. And so I did.
Okay. So, do you think that that was kind of like one of the soul missions that you were on, is to do this kind of work, and you
Oh,
just
for
had to
sure.
talk yourself up to it?
Yeah, for sure. And as one of my clients calls it, my meat sack. I've never heard that term, but she's the physical. But my meat sack was not in agreement. I would say my smaller self was just felt intimidated, and all my conditioning came up again. So I had to heal all that and move to the next level and own it, and step forward with excitement and joy.
Hmm. Okay. That's really cool because I mean, I feel like a lot of us want to take that step towards some other form of work or even something that's more fulfilling. But I mean, I think the thing that stops a lot of us from that, I know myself especially, is like money, bills. Like, oh no, it's something that's not uh right away. It's not guaranteed. Like there's a lot of faith in there, you know, and I think faith is one of those things that a lot of people have a hard time with because we're so conditioned, again, back to external things validating our internal experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this, in a very short period of time, I made more money than I ever had. And it really is a matter of allowing.
Hmm.
Allowing whatever wants to come through you to come through you. And if you are, instead of forcing it, we often think, oh, we need to force it. So I had kind of forced it before, but when it came to really stepping into it, I had to allow more and more. Oh, what is this going to look like? And people started showing up, and I got guidance, and and then I wrote 3 books, not back to back, but the first 2 were pretty close together. And I have a chapter in a compilation book as well. So I always thought I'd write 1 book when I was retired is what I was planning. But yeah, and it really is allowing. It really is allowing that to happen, and it's feeling that knowing. So I would say that I think fear is normal in any great venture that you're in alignment with. Something will come up because you're meant to grow through it.
Okay, so if we're meant to grow through it, we don't need to really be afraid of the growing pains, I guess. We have to allow them. Ugh.
Feel your fear, breathe through it, and carry on.
Ah, okay. And I mean, you had to sit there and uh, you had to build yourself up to that level of like confidence, right? But you could only do that having healed those parts of you that held yourself back, I guess, right?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
So, did I mean, let's go back to the how it all began. Had you said that he was able to move on, he went towards the light, but do you still get like like connections from him every now and then? Does he just drop by and say, "Hey, how's it going?"
Oh yeah, I can call him in a flash. Spirits are, I am a bit of a medium now. That's not something I advertise, but no, I can call him in right now. I mean, he's present right here, right now. He loves it. Spirit, it's one thing I look forward to being on the other side to see how all this works. Because how do these, I don't have the scientific explanation as to how souls show up. But at that time, he stayed with me. I learned to communicate with him. I could hear him for about a year and a half till I really created a new foundation for myself, till I felt really solid and was moving forward. And then it just became much less. But over the years, I can definitely call him in, and he loves me so much. I can
Um,
call in a lot of spirits.
that's really cool. Um, I mean, so was that something that you had in mind was being able to become a medium of sorts, or was that one of those surprises that was like, oh, this is part of my light?
I had no idea. This was not, it was a huge surprise. I'll tell you how it happened. So I could connect with him, but I thought it was just him. I
Mm,
never thought I was a medium. Years later, when I was living in Vancouver, and I was teaching a lot of meditation, I had this young woman that was coming for private lessons because she just had too much anxiety to come to my groups. And she texted me and said, for our session coming up, is it okay if my mom joins us? She's coming from out of town. And of course, I said, sure, no problem.
mm,
Then she texts me a couple days before and says, my mom wants to know if you'll do a spiritual reading for her. Now, I
oh,
don't, I didn't have a website, nothing. It was all word of mouth and just doing all this work. And so I just tuned in, and the answer I got was yes. So I responded, yes, I can do that. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing though. So they show up, And we're getting comfortable and we're going to begin the meditation class. And I said to her mother, so I understand you'd like a spiritual reading. And she said, yes, I would. I said, can you tell me what that means to you? She said, I want to speak with my deceased mother. And I tuned in. I don't do this sort of, but I tuned in and she said, do you do that? And I got to say yes. Like, oh my gosh. All right. So we do the meditation class. And I had said yes to this reading. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting to see what happens because I don't have a skill to follow to do this, but I'm trusting that something's going to happen. And Queen Elizabeth shows up. And I've got Queen Elizabeth. I'm like, no, I need this woman's mother. So I'm trying to push this Queen Elizabeth out of the way, and she keeps coming back. And then she gets her cane and she's tapping it on the floor, and she's like, it's me, it's me. And I'm like, ah. So I said to these women, I said, I'm really sorry. I'm trying to get your mother and I keep getting Queen Elizabeth. I wonder if she looked like Queen Elizabeth at all. And they both burst out laughing and they said she looked so much like Queen Elizabeth. She dressed like Queen Elizabeth and she wanted us to all call her Queen. So yes, that's her. I was like, oh my gosh. And what I've discovered ever since then, the message is always of love, always. The amount of love that the Spirit feels for the ones who are still here is unbelievable. Just like I could feel from my brother. And the mother's question of her mother, of Queen Elizabeth's mother, was, she was in hospice and they had been estranged for just over a decade. And she said, did you feel my presence when I laid on the bed with you? And her mom said, no, I didn't feel it. But as soon as I left my body, I saw you there and I felt your love. And I still get goosebumps today sharing that story. And in the moment, the love in the room was so palpable. We all started crying. It was just so beautiful. And so I don't, I'm just a medium. So when, I've had others, I could share other stories and everything. And but we're all connected.
Oh man, that's a really cool story. I think I would have been a little bit tripped up if I saw Queen Elizabeth or what I thought was Queen Elizabeth, and it's like, I'm trying to get to this person's mother. It's like, I'm that person's mother. It's like, sorry.
Well, back in those days, I couldn't hear them as well, like in the beginning, and but yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, that's way too cool.
but do you hear? I allowed it. That's my point I'm trying to make, is you need to allow your gifts to come through. It's the not knowing. We couldn't make it up. I could never dream the life I'm living now, doing the work I do. I could never have imagined it. Can't make it up. So it's about allowing the unfolding, allowing your gifts to come through, allowing your light to shine. Keep clearing your blocks.
Okay. Keep letting us allow ourselves to keep moving forward. I said that really weird, but allow ourselves to keep moving forward and allow it to just kind of untangle on its own. But I guess it kind of needs that little bit of a push, right?
Yeah.
We are right near the end. So what was that meditations that you were suggesting people try?
It's my 3 powerful meditations. So we'll put a link in the show notes
Okay.
and you can just click on that. There they are, powerful meditations. The first 2 are about the full breath and it talks about tuning into your heartbeat. And that's not absolutely required. If you can't feel it, no problem. But the third meditation is my most listened to meditation, creating safety and stability in the root chakra. So with anything you've been through, it's so important to move to a deeper level of safety and stability within yourself so you can move to a higher level of trust and faith.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope everyone out there tries out those meditations because I know I'm going to try it out. And Cheryl, it's just been an absolute honor and a pleasure having you on. And I look forward to. Oh, I did forget to ask. Do you think we could see you on in the future to dive a little bit deeper once everything kind of gets a little bit more settled out?
Sure. I would love that. And I'd love to offer you a chakra reading if you would like, Keegan.
Ooh,
And
okay.
I would love to come back on again. We could maybe include some of that.
Yeah, for sure. I would love a chakra reading, and I would just love to just see where we can unfold the mystery of trauma healing because it's or what we allow to come through for the next episode. How about that?
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Uh,
No,
Awesome. And everyone else out there, thank you for listening to Guidance and Recovery on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself. Love others if you can, but you got to try to love yourself first. Try to be your favorite version of yourself for the rest of the day. And if you're having a mental health crisis, you can dial 988 or text 741 741. And if you're in the LGBTQ plus community, you can dial the Trevor Project up in Canada. And I mean, just allow some healing to happen and just breathe through it because your feelings won't kill you, even if it feels like it will. Trust me. So, with that being said, thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next time.